welcome back to the studio. I've got not much more than an idea today, and if you're watching this video, then it must have worked out okay, because if it doesn't, I'm just going to throw this away and forget about it. But you can do that. I think basically I want to have a little bit of a kind of a dirt road coming through here, something like that, with maybe a fence separating it, some trees and things up here overhanging, and maybe on this side. Biggest thing is I want this backspace to be really brightly lit, with a little bit of a field, maybe a little higher up. Really brightly lit, backlit, where these trees are kind of in shadow and have some of those good shadows kind of falling across the road there. So, like I said, if it don't work out, you'll never see this. So if you're seeing it, it must be okay, and you probably see what it looks like up in the corner if it's done. So right now, I have no clue, but I'm about to get started on it. And I'm going to start with my basic palette of colors here, which is burnt umber, ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow light, quinacridone magenta, but I've added one. This is brilliant yellow green. In some brands, it's called bright yellow green. I'm going to use that to kind of get that glow in the trees, and of course, I got some white gesso. I think I'm going to start with the background, which is not really sky. We don't have any sky. I just want to do I don't want a sky. I just want to have some distant trees way in the back, and I want that to be really blue-green, but almost invisible. Make it really light, and a little more blue, I believe, than that. Maybe even a hint of this magenta in here. Give it a little bit of a purple hue. I think I like that, but much lighter. Okay, I'm going to do some of this mixing on the canvas, so let's go up there. So the sketch really wasn't for me to go by. It was just kind of to show you what's in my head, but so I don't mind painting over that. I'm going to have plenty of, I mean, I got it in my head anyway. That's a dangerous place for it, but that's the only place it lives right now. I think I want to get a lot more white in this. It's a little too dark already. Just going to add some gesso to it as I go. I want this to be really light. It's going to be kind of what I'm picturing is sort of a misty, really light trees. The light is so bright you really can't see much detail about it. I'll come back in that a little bit darker color maybe and get a little texture to it. There's not going to be a whole lot to this. Get a little bit more blue, a little bit more darker texture here, and just kind of get some brush strokes in there. Just want to imply that these are trees in the back. Let me get a little darker color. Yeah, a little greener. There's no detail to this for sure. I'm trying to get my hand in the way too much here. Yeah, this shouldn't take long at all. Just throwing something on there. And then just for the sake of having the canvas painted, I'm going to go ahead and put some on the bottom as well. It's all going to be painted over, but that'll just give me a sort of a base coat for the other colors to go on top of. Okay, so we got a little bit of texture. Maybe while that's wet, I could even come back with my Maybe this little fan brush, just some water. I'm not going to paint anything else up in this part. It's going to be just what shows through here. So a little texture won't hurt. Yeah. Let me get a little bit of that paint that I had for the bottom. Can't tell much about it, but that's good enough. All right, I'm going to get that really dry before I move on. All right, now that's completely dry. And now that it's dry, I think it's a little darker still than what I wanted it to be. I think I'm going to take some straight gesso with a little water in it. A good bit of water, actually. It's about 50-50. And do a little bit of a glaze on this side. If you've never seen this before, this just basically, I'm going to put some paint on and going to wipe it off. I want it lighter coming from this side. This is the side the sun is on. The sun is coming from the upper right, kind of up here. So I'm going to lighten that. And what I'll do is take a dry paper towel then, and in small kind of circular motion, just kind of wipe that off, rub it in more or less. And it kind of creates a fog. This works really well for creating fog, but also for just kind of making everything a little bit lighter. I do want it a little lighter even still up in this corner. Really light. I don't even mind having some of these little streaks in here where the sun's shining across there. Yeah, probably won't see that much when it dries. Actually, I'm just gonna rub that in because I want to dry it and do it one more time. Let me get it good and dry. I'm gonna do one more round of that. Okay, one more time, and I don't know how much of this is really showing up, how well this is really showing up on camera, but you can see the paint when I put it on for sure, but you do wipe most of it off. Just the trick is to have some water in it so that it doesn't dry right away. And then when you kind of get your paper towel kind of lightly circles, and it, like I said, it feels more like rubbing it in than wiping it off. Yeah, that's more what I want. And then if I pull some directional kind of streaks across here, if it does show up, it'll show up as if the sun is kind of shining across there, which is okay. All right, not much of that. Okay, I like that better. Now, staying in that same color, which was Ultramarine Blue, Yellow, and Gesso, just that. I'm going to get a little bit of a color that's got a little bit more green to it, not quite as blue. Let's see what this looks like. It's a little too light. Let me get a little more color to it. Just want it to show up. Yeah. A little bit of a tree line across here. I want that to be a little more yellow, I think. Yeah. Just a little bit of a fuzzy tree line across here. Really, really faint. I don't want any kind of definition to it at all. It's so bright you can barely tell what's what. And I'm just using this fan brush that I usually use for grass just because I don't care about the surface of it, what the actual tops of it look like. I'm just going to fuzz it out. And the bottom's going to be covered up, so I really don't care about the bottom. And this side over here is going to be covered up. Now, under the bottom half of that, I'm going to add a little bit of brown into that mixture. And go underneath it just a little at the base. Yeah, that did just a little bit. Good enough, good enough. Now that is going to have, take a little wet paper towel there, my land is going to be right there. Okay. So now this is that field I mentioned. Let me get a little bit of a smaller flat brush. A little 1-inch flat brush. No, that's about a 3/4 inch flat brush. Anyway, for this field, I'm going to go with the same color, but leaning a lot more towards yellow. I won't show you the color mixing. I'm just putting a lot more yellow in that same color and gesso. I want it really bright. Yeah, something even lighter, even whiter maybe. Something like that. This color has been the same color, everything. I just add a little more yellow, a little more blue. A little more blue for the background, a little more yellow for this field foreground. Really light. Okay. And as I come down, I'm going to let it get a little more green. Yeah. Just by putting just a touch of blue in that same color. No detail in this yet. Keep coming down. Keep adding some blue. And this bottom's going to be completely covered up anyway, so that's going to be pretty close. Really probably only going to keep the top, few inches of this field anyway. Okay, now, since I got this brush anyway, and it's wet, I might as well, I don't know what that was, might as well get some, little bit of texture in here, at least up here in the front. Because I'm not going to keep most of this in the foreground, but if I do end up keeping some of it, it'll have a little texture to it. Just a little. This is just water. Paint's still wet, so that's a little bit of a hard line right there to hide. I like it. Okay, I think that's good for now. I'm going to dry that before I move on. Okay, now that it's dry, I think I want to go ahead and do one more layer of the wash over the top to just soften everything up. I know, I just painted all that. I'm just painting over it. I just want it to be really far away, really soft. Put the paint on quickly. And I'm going to take a dry paper towel. Really kind of scrub that in. Yeah, see how that does? Really soft and misty. All right. Now I'm going to hit that with the blow dryer, and then we can move to the stuff in the foreground. All right. I think moving on, I've got my softer fan brush that when I put it in water, you can see the bristles just separate nicely like that. I'm going to paint some trees. Got to make a decision about where my trees are. I think I want to have my fence kind of come down here and the road kind of come at the very bottom here. So I want an overhanging tree up here and a little cluster of trees here on this fence line maybe. But these are going to be backlit. They're going to be glowing from behind. And the way to achieve that effect, first thing I'm going to do is take some gesso, straight gesso with water in it, so I can get my bristles to separate like this. I'm going to paint my trees in white first. And that seems crazy. But I think first thing I want a little bush right here. And now that my technique for these trees with this brush is just to kind of use the edges, use the corner of the brush this way, keep it kind of perpendicular to the canvas, and just kind of tap and let the bristles make the tips of the bushes. I'm just going to kind of let the brush do most of the work. Make sure you leave it kind of lacy, leave plenty of holes in there. All I'm really concerned about right now is that front edge, that top edge of the bush. because we're going to cover everything up. And this is just a little kind of cluster of bushes maybe right here. I don't know what kind of trees, but just something small. And then a bigger tree back here that's kind of growing up and leaning out over. The trunk of it will be kind of off to the side. We won't see most of that, but we'll see the branches. So start on those branches. And this, it's late summer right now, so this is kind of a summertime painting. These limbs would kind of hang downward in the summer. In the springtime, they kind of grow upward towards the sun. They're always going to grow towards the sun, but if, in the summer they get heavier, and some of those limbs will kind of point downward. It's just something you notice when you start painting stuff like this. You start noticing a bunch of details about how things work. I'm just making decisions here about where I want this, how far I want this limb to come in. I want to make sure that these tips have some really distinct spots on them, because these are going to be the part that glows. Up in here with some of it. And I don't mind. I don't need to get all up in there. I just want mostly the front tips of it. Okay. One more on this side. I think sort of a smaller. See if I can get my hand out of the way so you can see that. Maybe sort of a smaller one here on the side that's kind of coming in from the side here. Just a little bush. Okay. That's pretty good right there. Now I've got that dry. I'm going to come back with some of that brilliant light green, a brilliant yellow green that I showed you on the palette, and gesso. Just doing about a 50-50 mix of those two. This stuff's really bright. Make sure I get plenty of water in there so it'll separate. Let's see what this looks like up here. This stuff is really bright. And now the thing I want to do here is kind of mimic my white areas. I want to go up to them, but not cover them. Just up to it. Not covering all the white on the tips. I'll come back in a little further with this one. It's a very bright color, and I usually am a fan of making all my colors, especially greens, because greens out of the tube can really get out of hand real quick. If you start buying, Kelly green and stuff like that, and start trying to paint grasses with those greens, you'll regret it pretty quickly. You'll start realizing that's not what nature looks like. Those greens are not natural. Most greens in nature are not that pretty. If you make them yourself, you'll notice on the palette they're not as pretty. They look more natural. But this one, it's hard to mix. You could get close with a lot of yellow, but it's hard to get it to look exactly right. So this is one of the few greens that I'll actually, buy and use. Now, as I get up here, I want to make sure I leave plenty of that white showing. Green in here, and I'm still not going all the way back with it because it is all going to be covered. But we'll go back a little bit. Okay. Pretty ugly so far, but that's what we want. Okay. I want to see about adding a little bit of that in here. Gonna put some on and use some water to push it around. I kind of like that bright green for that field. Yeah. All right. I'm going to make a color now for our trees. Let's talk about the darker color. What I want to do here is start with some Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Umber. As we said before, those two, if you mix them kind of 50-50, you end up with pretty much a black. Not a solid black, but it's a pretty dark color. If I lean it a little more towards the blue, not that much, just a little more towards the blue, and then add just a touch of yellow to it, you'll get a green. It's a nice dark green. And that's what I want this first layer to be. I want it to be pretty dark. We've got all this really bright, really bright glowing leaves, but what's going to be the leaves that are actually blocking the light will be almost like a silhouette. So get that color made, then rinse my brush out, and I want plenty of water in this so I can separate my bristles out here. So they're wanting to stick together, so I need a little more water. All right, about like that. Yeah, let's get them to separate a little bit, about like that. So now once again, I'm going to come in. Now I don't want to get all the way out to the edge of these. This time I want to leave plenty of that glow showing there. I'm going to make sure that my darker part is kind of clean, but I got plenty of little holes in there to let that light stuff show through out towards the ends. All right, and this is dark. We'll come back in a minute and do a green on top of it that gives it a little more color. But this dark is kind of like a silhouette on that. Let's see how it makes that glow effect. All right, come on up here and do all of this. Now, some of these little limbs and dots can come out a little further than the glow. That's okay. But I definitely don't want to cover up all of my stuff out on the ends. And this will get a little more solid as it gets towards the back. Out here on the end, it's going to be really lacy, really got a lot of holes in it. But as it gets in towards the middle, it's going to be a little more solid. It's solid back here. It's a good time to kind of work the back and get your bristles to look right before you get out here to the part that needs to look good. Now, I've done these trees like this with this fan brush a lot. It does take some practice, but it is a pretty easy technique once you kind of get used to it. Pretty good way to make a lot of trees fast. But back here in the back, I'm going to make it pretty solid. Just going to get some more layers of stuff on it. Put a couple of limbs and things in here later too. But I want this to be pretty solid down here. I'm going to go ahead and come down with it a little too into this ground a little bit more. Got to tie that down a little bit. Make sure to go off the canvas. Okay. Same thing over here on the right. Just a little smaller bush here, but see how much that pushed the background back with all those layers of gesso on there, making it kind of foggy looking. Let that die right there. Okay, now I got to make some decisions. Okay, I went ahead and dried that a little bit. I think I want my road to kind of come around this way from that area, but wider down here. About like that. Something like this. With a, I think I want a fence kind of following it. There's like a fence post here. Maybe the fence kind of goes around with the road. Yeah, this side doesn't really need anything, but it can kind of follow along with it there. Let's do that. Let's put a little, just a, little wooden fence in here, kind of old, falling down. Those are the easiest ones to paint because they don't have to be perfect. We'll have a lot of grasses and things at the bottom covering. And then I think I want to have a strip in the middle of this road, have a strip of grass growing in the middle. Because I think I want, with this light coming across here, I think I want shadows, a lot of shadows and light kind of casting across here and up into this grass. And the light will be on the side of the fence, something like that. Anyway, let's go ahead and finish the trees first. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of where that stuff would be. Okay, I got my liner brush now with some of that black, that dark paint on here, that half and half Ultramarine Blue and burnt Umber. And I'm going to put some more layers of gray, green on here, but just to give it some bones, go ahead and put some of this in here in places. And most of this, like I said, will be covered up, but where it does show, it'll look right. Got a little too much blue in it, I think. Let's see, we got one of these that kind of comes up and shows through there. Some more water. Like that. Let's have some of these limbs kind of come down here. Don't really have to connect everything. Don't think you have to kind of connect every limb with a stick, every leaf with a stick. Not that serious. Just want to have some little sticks and things showing through here, that when I do cover it up with the next layer of leaves, if I want to leave some of it showing through, I can. And some of this might show through here and there a little bit. Yeah. Now like that. Don't know how much of it I need over here, really. Just a little. All right, I'm going to dry that, and then I'll put some more leaves on there. All right, coming back in with some of that green. This is the same. This is made the same way as the green that I put on before. It's not as dark. I got a lot more yellow in it. Get a little more yellow in it. It's got a lot more yellow, and that just makes it more vibrant, more green. Just gonna kind of start back here. The color, the green color, would show up more up here where the light is not shining through as much, you know, because where it shines through, right where you, out on the tip where you would see a lot of light shining through, the leaves that block the light would be silhouetted. They'd be really dark. So your actual color would be more concentrated up in the meat of the tree, up here in this part. If that makes any sense. Now, I don't want to make it completely solid. Just want to get a little hint of that color in there. And it is going to be darker down, you know, down here. Let me go mix it up a little bit. Get a little darker patches, lighter patches. Just a little. Don't want it too solid. That's pretty good. A little bit in here. Break that up a little. I think that's good enough. I'll go a little bit more over here. Okay. We may come back and mess with that a little more later too. For now, I think I want to block in my road. Let's start with, since I've already got this this liner brush out, I think I'll go ahead and start by just blocking in those fence posts. I've already got some black made. I'm just going to get a little more of that mixed up here. I don't care if it leans a little bit towards the brown. And just to give an idea of where these are. And they're not, you know, this is not a fence that was installed yesterday, so it's maybe not perfect. Keep mostly the same size. Make sure I get my perspective right as I come around this corner. I'm going to get a little wider in here. The bottoms of them are going to be covered in grasses. These are going to have a lot of light, a lot of texture on them anyway, so most of this will be covered up. And this is the kind that's just wooden poles stuck in the ground, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know if I even want the cross beams across there. Yeah, I guess I will. Instead, I thought maybe doing a barbed wire, but I think I like having the cross beams. That gives me an opportunity to put some more highlights in here. That one got a little carried away. Paper towel out here. Although most of this is going to be covered with grasses and stuff. Try to get it mostly right. This long liner brush will do a lot of the steady hand work for you if you let it. Just kind of load it up heavy with paint. Just kind of lay it down and let it just kind of pull it like that. These cross beams on here are just poles, just wooden poles. They're not perfect either. They probably didn't measure too perfectly the space between all of these poles. So not something you have to stress about making perfect when you do this kind of fence anyway. Put some Pretty good grasses and things along the bottom edge of that. I think then I'm just going to put a little gesso in that brown, that almost black mixture. So a little gesso in it for now. It gives me a good kind of a tannish brown. Just block this in. It'll have some more colors to it later, but for now, just going to block it in. We'll use grasses and stuff to tie it to put it in place, to hold it down. For now, I do want to keep my brush strokes horizontal when I'm painting and stuff like this, even if it's going to be covered up, because it gives that flatness illusion, you know. I don't want it to seem like it's round. If these brush strokes do end up showing through, they'll have the right direction to them. It's going to get darker as it comes to the foreground. Go ahead and make that just a bit darker. It's already starting to take shape a little bit. Yeah, I think that would probably come down a little further this way. All right. Let me dry that, and then we'll start making it look good. Right, before I go any further with the bottom half here, I think I want to do a little more to these trees now that they're dry and I've had a chance to kind of step back and look at them. I think I got a little too solid up here. It just kind of looks like a big blob and some stuff sticking out. I'm going to rework that just a little bit to punch some holes in it, and I'll show you a cool trick. I've got some painter's tape here, and that I've cut into little strips, and what you can do is take a little piece of where you think there may be like a limb. All right, real thin strips. I just took a razor and kind of sliced up a piece of this tape. I don't want much of this, just a couple of spots that have some really thin tree, you know, the limbs. I'll show you what I'm gonna do with that. Let me get one more here. It's hard to cut this stuff that thin. I think this will work for this one. Okay, now I'm gonna get some of my that bright green that I was using, that really light, what was it called? Brilliant light green. Because I think another thing I need really to do is put a little bit more of that green in there. I don't think I got it green enough. It goes from sort of black to yellow. So adding a little bit, let's just see what it does first out here on the end if I just add some of this regular green. Just kind of on the outside between the glowing parts and the dark parts. You can kind of tap around on that too to kind of smear it. Yeah, just to green it up a little bit because it looks a little yellow. Yeah, I think that's going to help a lot. So I'll do some of that in here, and that can help me have some, you know, a little more shape, a little more kind of holes through there. Yeah, but look here on the tape. I'll show you how this is going to work. Just want to pick a spot where some light would be shining through, and we'll kind of cluster some dots sort of around that spot in this light green, and I'll let them get a little more sparse as they go out. Now this is light shining through the gap in the tree, and so you'll see this when I pull the tape off is basically a limb that you can see shining through there. Okay, so first in green, let's do it down here as well. just dots. I'm not really thinking too much about a shape. Trying to keep it kind of random. And maybe down here. Kind of soften that just a little. Okay. Also on this tree here, I don't want as much here, but just a little in spots. Okay. So now, with the bright green, and I'm going to do some more of that bright green up here before I'm done too, but now I want to kind of get this back color again, which was the light green with white gesso in it, and some yellow, some blue. A lot more white in it. Go back to that to make a little bit more of that. Test that out, see how I did. Yeah, it's pretty close. Now, just in the center of where these light clusters are, I have to go a little lighter. Just in the center of these light areas, make them extra light. Right on top of the tape. And there's some spots where it can, you can make some smaller dots where it comes out too. But just right in the middle of that green, that's where the light's completely shining through. And anywhere else you think you might need a little light to come through there. And I always kind of like to tap it a little bit just to soften it. It's kind of looking like spots. I'm going to make a little bit of bring some of this out a little bit. The hardest thing about doing anything like this is trying to make it look random. We just naturally want to make patterns out of everything. Now, when you look at this, you won't see white paint, on the tree. You'll see holes shining through. Your brain wants to see that, so that's what it'll give you, which is good for us. That helps me break up this solid green that I ended up with. Yeah, that's looking better already. I'm going to make sure I get it nice and light on this, right on the tape here. Okay. Let's see, what does that look like? I got a little bit of a shape in here I don't like. But I think pulling the tape off will break that up a little. Go ahead and pull the tape off and see what we get. It's still wet, but if I'm careful, I can pull it off. Well, so much for being careful. Yeah. Okay, so when you're up close to it and painting it, you don't feel right, it don't look right, but when you step back and look at that kind of creates that illusion a little bit. Then you can come back just in spots and cover some of that if you want to, but I think I want to leave those kind of where they're at. Just kind of, with this kind of thing, you really got to just back up from it and see what it needs. But that's a lot better. That's a lot more broken up. I'm going to come back with my bright green though and do some more bright stuff along the edges of the tree here, along the glowing edges of it. And looking at it again, like stepping back and looking at it, I think I've also decided I want to change where my light source comes from. I was thinking I wanted it to be kind of upper right, but I think now that I'm looking at the way this fence is, I think I'm going to try to shift it to upper left. It's kind of behind. Everything's kind of backlit anyway. But we got to pull that one off. But I think having it coming from the left, I'll be able to do some good cast shadows from the fence, which is kind of the point of that whole thing. I don't want to get too carried away with this green up here. Just want it to be a little more green, a little less yellow. Yeah, kind of getting that glow. I think especially up in the cracks here. Okay. A little more of it around here too. Some of this stuff down here can be a little lighter. Yeah, I think that works. That broke it up a good bit. And if you're going to do it over there, I might as well do it over here as well. Break this up a little too. It's not as important, but just kind of green it up a little bit. Yeah, I like that. And put a little coming out there. I think I like the way that ended up looking. Okay. All right. So now I want to move back to the road. Let's make some decisions about that. I definitely don't like the color of it. All this is going to be much darker, you know, all the grasses and stuff. It's just blocked in right now. So I definitely want the road to be a lot darker up front. Go ahead and darken that up. This is going to be, so if the light is coming across there, we can assume there's a bunch of trees on that side. The light's it's going to be dark. I always want the bottom corners of my canvas to be dark. It kind of creates a push back towards the middle of the painting. Make that nice and dark. I don't care if it gets too ugly here. I can smooth this out a little bit. But I think I want to darken under here a little bit. Just give us a little bit of a bank maybe right there. Not a whole lot. Pull some of that off. Maybe even on the other side where the grasses are going to be up there. This will be kind of almost a cast shadow from the grasses to make that edge darker. I think I want it pretty light back in there. Keep it dark here. I'm just making decisions now. It's a little too brown. Put a little more blue in that. Get a little darker. Down here even. Yeah. Just looking a little brown. The shadow, the highlights will make it not quite as brown. Definitely darkest under this edge. Back in this corner. Okay. I'm going to paint grass over top of all this, but if the darkness of this shows through here, that would be good too. Just for some shadows coming across here. Try to keep them going in the same direction as much as I can. This one probably wouldn't matter as much. I think a lot of that's going to be pretty dark down there. Pretty dark in here. Most of that's going to be covered up. For the lighter version of that, I'm just going to add a little gesso into my brown mixture, which is Ultramarine Blue, burnt umber. A lot of burnt umber. The ultramarine blue tip makes it more towards black, so that makes it darker. I think I'll put a touch of yellow in that as well, just to get it to look a little more sunny. This gives me a pretty good light color. Let's go even lighter. A little more yellow, a little more white. Yeah, something like that. This part of the road, I would like for it to be pretty light. Yeah, just streak some of this in here. We'll come back and do some more, detail type stuff and rocks and whatever else in here with a smaller brush. But this is just to get it blocked in. Now I'm going to switch to my small fan brush, grass, this natural bristle fan brush, and put some of these grasses in. That black, that 50-50 blue and brown, plus a little yellow, is going to give me a really dark green. Something like this. Yeah. Something like that. That in these shadow areas, I'm going to let this be pretty dark. Let's see, down here would be pretty dark overall, I would think. Get a little more blue in that. Get a little bit too ugly. And my fence, I painted it in black or dark just because I know I can paint over it and I can still see it enough to come back and put it back in. So that was more like my version of a drawing, tracing it in there. Because I know I'm going to paint over it, but I'm going to come back and I'll be able to see it to paint it back in. All right, there's a lot of dark under here because that's all in shadow. A lot of this is in shadow. But the light's coming across there. So I'm going to get a little lighter now. A little greener. I'll go with some more yellow, a little more blue, make it prettier. And I'm not showing all the color mixing on this because there's really no point to it. I'm still using just those same basic colors, burnt umber, ultramarine blue, light yellow, some variation of those colors mixed to make all of these. And I do that intentionally because that makes it makes your painting a little more cohesive, but it also makes it easier. You don't have to think about mixing the colors quite as much. They kind of take care of themselves. I'm just going to pretend like this fence is not here and paint the field. Go a little lighter up here. A little bit more of that bright green in here. Yeah. I like that. Pretty bright coming across there. So rinse that brush out really good, and with just water on this far away stuff, I can come and kind of blend, knock out some of that far away stuff. I don't want that to be, have a lot of grass texture to it. Kind of wipe some of that off of the field there. I like how it brightened it up a good bit though. Just kind of blending that now. Now that really bright green over here, I like that. Coming across there, might have got too far up with it right there, but I like a little bit of that over here. Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. It takes some layers, but think I like the really bright grasses right there. Now I mentioned too that in the road there'll be some grass that's kind of growing like in the middle of the road here too. Now that, of course, just like the road gets darker as it goes over, the grasses would get darker in here and brighter out there. You just kind of have to go back and forth with this. Some grass, some dirt, go back and forth. Fill in, cover up some parts, uncover some parts. I think our grass right on the edge of the road here might have some shadow to it. Could even have a little shadow coming off, like I mentioned, it's coming off of this fence. Hard to do that, especially on these small ones. You can kind of see it though, showing through there a little bit, and that's okay. Yeah, better already. Just got to decide where you want it dark, where you want it light. Okay. So I did just dry this with a blow dryer. I think while I was doing that, I think I want to add a little something right here. I don't want it to be the middle of the canvas. I'm going to move it over here a little bit. I want to add a little tiny tree or something kind of growing up in that fence. Just kind of, let's see, I'm just going to get some of this dark green and see what I can come up with. Just something kind of right in here, and this is just my liner brush. Just going to make some dots. Something that kind of grows up in here, just a little weed. Reason for it is because I want something else to cast a shadow right there. I think this would do good for that. Just a little, you know, tree growing up in the fence, little, like I said, a weed of some kind right here. It can be pretty dark, and I think it's going to make the, you know, make a lot of shadow here. I get in my dark green here. Get it pretty solid. And I know I'm painting over my fence. I'll put the fence back on top of it because I want it to be behind the fence. But just something that'll cast a shadow across here because I want a shadow going across the road. Maybe I'll make it a little bit taller even. More solid up here. Not trying to do a Christmas tree by any means, but something that's kind of just growing here. I like having a second part of it here. I think that keeps it from looking like a Christmas tree. I'll go pretty solid here in the middle though. Okay. And back to my fan brush. A lot of this in here would be dark because of it. And over into there, not this one. Yeah, not that part. That's on the other side of the... But this dark grass right in here. And I'll put my road back in, but tie that down a little bit. Yeah, just another little something there. Of course, it's going to need to glow a little bit. It's still wet, so I'm going to kind of be careful to add some of this in here. I don't think it needs as much. It's a little more silhouetted. That's probably enough right there. But I do want the bottom of it, especially in here, to be nice and dark. And this grass as well, over into here. Doing this with a liner brush, but it's just putting the color in there, putting the values in there, the darkness, and I'll come back and texture it if I need to later. Yeah, I think that did a lot. When I fix the road and do the shadows on the road, that'll look a lot better. All right, I'm gonna hit that with the blow dryer real quick. All right, I want to work on the road, but before I do, I got a area of grass over here that don't make a lot of sense. Kind of wiped off and it didn't really get any texture, so I'll clean that up a little bit. It's dark over here. Just want to get the texture right. Actually, that might be enough if all I do is the dark. Yeah. This down here is pretty dark as well. Okay. I'll go ahead and dry this again and then I'll start working on that road. All right, first step in detailing this road I think is going to be to get my really dark, almost black, most leaning a little towards brown. I'm just going to continue to use my liner brush with this and kind of decide where the bottom of the grass is, where the grass meets the road, basically right in here, under this shadow side. It's about like painting a creek or something, or water. You have to kind of define the edges of it a little bit. Not completely, because you're going to have, grasses growing up over things, but there's some areas here that I want to kind of clean up, kind of make it a little more clear where the edges of the road are. Now, as it's down here in the dark, you'll have some really dark kind of cast shadows across here, but they'll kind of fade out. So some of that will kind of be good hard edges up towards the grass side, but it'll kind of fade out into the road. About like that. So just that little bit makes a difference. And we'll do the same under the edge of the grass here, especially in the darkest areas. Kind of define where the road, the grass starts, collects at the bottom of the grass. Just trying to define where some things are at. Okay. This side of the road is really dark, but the same kind of thing. I just want to have some, detail over there. Keeping everything kind of flowing horizontal as much as possible. Keep the illusion of the flatness of the road. I see a lot of beginners, especially, that paint roads or creeks or something. They look like just run straight up the painting, and it's a hard thing to do to get it to lay flat. To get the perspective right. This is one of those things where you do a lot of horizontal lines to kind of create that. Okay. I'm going to cover some of this up with my lighter stuff here too, so pretty much for the road, I'm going to have two colors, and I have a light that's for the bright parts, and a darker that's for the shadow parts. And this black is just really for the borders. So putting it on first because I want to cover some of it up. When I start putting the other colors in, some of this will go away. This is just the base of that grass. Not trying to have any really hard edges here. Okay. I want to carry this up here some. I think my road kind of disappeared up here a lot. See if I can kind of get that to come back a little. With this. Yeah. Okay. Switching to flat brush. Just a little, 1/4 inch soft flat brush. Well, let me blow dry this real quick because I don't want to lose any of that I just did. All right, and like I said, I have a darker color and a lighter color. These are both variations of Ultramarine Blue and Brown and Gesso. This is just a darker mixture of it. I'm just going to come in here and put some in the shadow areas, some horizontal lines in here. Kind of fade some of those shadows in. I don't want really a lot of hard lines. And honestly, I'm going to do most of the road this color. And then the highlights will be on top of this. It's easier to, there'll be fewer highlights, so it's easier to paint the highlights back in on top of the dark than to paint the dark between the highlights, to me. You could go either way, and you will have to go kind of do a little of one, a little of the other. Okay, so I know this area here is going to be pretty dark because of that tree. Make a pretty good cast shadow across there. And I'm losing some of my grass here, but I'll put that back in. And then back there will be pretty light. I'll have some light coming across here. So let's do that for now. I'm going to go ahead and dry that. Okay, now I'm coming back with the highlight color, which is a lot more gesso and a little bit of yellow in that. And so with the highlights, you don't have to do too many. You don't want to get carried away. If you highlight everything, then they're no longer highlights. Okay, so I'm avoiding the shadow of this tree, but behind it, the road back here, which I lost some of, but I'm going to add it back now, will be pretty light coming across here. All my strokes horizontal. Pretty good bit of light coming across the road back there. And then right in here, right up to where that shadow is, pretty good bit of highlight here. Especially coming from this side, because there's going to be a little shadow from that grass. I'll let it fade in a little from this side, about like that. And here, where that light shines through, pretty bright right in here, I think. Like I said, you go back and forth. You do a little light, you do a little dark, you do a little light, you do a little dark, until you get it exactly like you wanted. I think that's kind of the right areas. I may have gotten down too far with that one. And when this dries, it's going to dry a good bit darker. Even already, as you see, I'm coming back putting some second coats on it. The second coats are going to be a little lighter. I could even see maybe a little bit of light trickling through right here in spots. Yeah. Something like that. All right. Let me go back to my shadow color. If I can clean this up just a little. Yeah, just want it to kind of gradually get darker darker as it comes forward here. Most of the light's going to be on that top part. Fade that in. What you can do now is, if you want to do some little detail stuff, if you could go even brighter with little bright spots. Watch how this works. So you got a little something in the road here, a little rock or something in the light spot. Do a few of these over here. That then would have a shadow or a dark spot under, pulling away from it. That can add some little details there. Nothing real crazy. I want to let that dry, and then I'm going to lighten it a little more, I think, on those light spots. The darkest of the spots, let's see, my dark has got some white in it. I'm going to have to get some darker mixture here. The really dark mix right in here can kind of come back and enhance it a little. Some of those cast shadows. Kind of want to make it a little lacy because it's shadow from that tree. Got a weird line right here I need to break up. Okay. So some individual grasses and a little lighter on that highlight, and then I want to start working on the fence. Actually, let me go to the fence first. Let me dry this. We'll go to the fence, and the highlights and the final steps be putting those really bright stuff on the road. Okay, so before I can do any highlighting or detail or anything on this fence, first I gotta reclaim it from where I covered it up with the grass, especially the top parts that wouldn't be in the grass. Just gonna black those back in. Just simple like that. At the bottom, it is going to be in the grass, so I'm not too worried about doing the bottom. And like before, I don't care if this fence is perfectly straight. It's kind of just an old wooden fence. Okay. Need a little more water. Now, as I get towards the bottom of this, I'm intentionally not going to try to make a hard line in that grass. I'm going to let it disappear down into the grass, just like that. And this top edges will be nice and clean from grass. But that bottom edge, if it gets a little grass over it, that's not the end of the world. All right. Now these back here are going to have some grass on them, so I'm just going to okay. All right. While I'm in this black, make sure I get nice and dark here. That needs to be pretty dark right there. Okay. I'm going to dry that, and we'll start doing some detail on the fence. Okay, for the highlight color here, I'm really just adding some gesso to that same mixture and a little more brown. It's got a little more of a a little more of a brown to it. But so our areas, they're going to be highlighted. I'll start with kind of a mid-tone color. The tops will have some highlight to them. The tops of the beams, the ones that are in the sun anyway. Now that one may not be in the sun all the way. The tops of the poles, the back side of the poles. Like I said, this, you can barely see this because it's got a lot of brown, but it's just a slightly different color. Yeah, it's not showing up much back there, but that's okay. No, more gesso. Tiny amount of yellow in that too. More gesso gives me a lighter shade of it. Yeah. Right on the top edges of it. It's such a small area on this small canvas. There's not a whole lot I can do with it. But if I wanted to take an extra brush, a second brush, and kind of fade that bottom edge out, I could do that. Maybe my little flat brush will do a good job with it. Just kind of round that bottom edge just a little. Soften it. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. This is not the final highlight, obviously. Some of this is going to be pretty light back here. Not concerned too much with those bottom beams. All right, even lighter. We'll go ahead and dry that real quick. We grab an even smaller liner brush. This one's an 050. I think the other one was a 30. Because I want to do these highlights smaller and smaller as I go, and it's such a small area. There's not going to be a whole lot of highlight area, especially on these ones far away. Just the very top. Let's see if I can get even lighter with that. More gesso, more yellow. That might be too much yellow. Let's see what we get. Yeah, that's more like it. Didn't take a lot of this to stand out. Little spots here and there. As we come up here, this is kind of the area that's going to have the most effect of it. This top beam here. Very top edge of it. Put it on the bottom as well. Catching a little light right through here. Yeah, not too much. All right, I don't think I want to do too much more to that fence. I think that's pretty good. I'm leaving this dark, and it doesn't have any, this in the shadow. Right across there. While I got my little brush, going back into my bright green. See if I can highlight the back side of this tree just a little bit more. Got a little weird area up top there. Yeah. Just a little. Get maybe even some mid-tone greens in here. Give it a little bit of coming through the fence here. Yeah. All right. Now, while I got that little bitty brush, now's the time to do some really bright highlight grasses. I'm going to take that bright green, add a little yellow to it, add a little white to it, kind of get my brightest green that I can possibly get. Put some water in it so it'll flow right on this brush. Okay. And some of these right in here. Be super bright. They don't show up that good until they get in front of the dark stuff. So let's look for some opportunities to do that. Some of this right in here can come in front of that dark background shadow. Just a little. That's the thing about these little details like this. It don't take much of them. Just a few here and there, and it makes it look like you spent a lot of time on it. You're gonna tap out the bottoms, kind of fuzz out the bottom edges of them. Some bright stuff in here. Okay. What about up here, maybe? May not be able to get the texture that I want, but I can add some highlight back in there for sure. Having a pretty clean line between where the highlight is and where the shadow is helps enhance it too. Some bright light shining through here. About that. Just in spots. Just really want this to be bright. I'm not really worried about painting grass. I'm just trying to get this really light color in here. Really light value. There. Here. Yeah. And then if it's that light right there, we may need to go even lighter. Some of the highlights in here. And through here. Yeah. Just enough. Not too much. Clean that up a little. What else? What else? What else? A grass texture. Back here still a little weird. Get some more dark. Grass texture in here still a little weird. Excuse me. Yeah, that's good enough. Like that. Some more of that down here. Some of that sort of gray grass. Sort of shadowy grass. I don't know. I think that's probably pretty good. Let me go back to my lightest highlight road color. See if I can get that back here some. Yeah. A little bit brighter stuff. These little last minute things are what makes biggest difference. And it's all about the contrast. My brightest brights will look brighter if they have some dark to contrast against them. So maybe some dark grasses, shadow grasses that are kind of growing up from the base here. Help those bright ones look brighter. Same thing here, just at the bottom. Some of this is not very visible. Yeah, I don't want to get too carried away with that. While I'm in that dark, I put a couple of, little detail things in the road here, rocks and such. These little last minute spots and details really make it look like you spent a lot of time on it. All right, I think that's probably about all I want to do. Sit back and look and see if I see anything else that's needed. And we got some shadows, we got some light, we got light shining through. I think it works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's a good thing to practice. If you enjoyed this video, if you made it this far, you must have enjoyed it a little bit. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. I try to do a video at least once a week or so of some kind of video, and then I have a art class that we do the live videos from that come up. That's usually about once a month that those get posted, because those classes usually run 4 weeks, 4 Tuesday nights, and so we'll put those up at the end of the month usually. But if like, subscribe, appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next one.